old, nothing new. So I'm going to do a bit of work on the 68 today, the old F250, 68 4x4 high boy. This thing is it's getting close to being on the road, getting close to having a roadworthy for it, which for US folk is me being able to legally drive this thing on the road. So what's going on at the moment? Obviously I've got a few engine issues, which I'll go through shortly. But most of this truck is actually at a good point. I'm going to do actually a walk around on this, a more in-depth, detailed walk around soon. So look out for that. Interior is in a good place. I've got the door trims on. I've got the armrests that they're on. I've been waiting on those. They were coming in the mail from the USA. I ordered the wrong ones, unfortunately. So I've got some 67 ones sitting there on the shelf now. So that all looks good. I've got the chrome trim on. Apologies about the camera work. It's just an iPhone that I'm filming on, so color's a bit dodgy and it's a little bit grainy. Floors, I basically went through, the cab, cleaned everything up, gave the floors a coat of paint. These things have no rust in them, completely mint. I'm pretty stoked on that, especially given that it had rubber floors, which, generally holds moisture and rusts them out. Don't know why they weren't, but, I'm not complaining. Seat, I didn't have to do anything with. That's in good nick. I'm not sure if it's original. It looks original, and I'm hoping it is because, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I do think this is a low mile truck actually, and we'll go into that in that in-depth video on this thing in another video. Look, most things working. Horn, return signal. What do you call that? Turn signal release or return. I can't think what that's called right now. Dash is all sorted. Pulled the dash apart, put a new fascia on it, and just cleaned everything up. Got everything working, fuel gauge, temp gauge, oil pressure gauge. So that's all sweet. Yeah, put a few boots on the gear stick, just to neaten things up, make it look a little bit more presentable. Anyway, let's get out of here because that's a pretty ordinary camera work.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Adjusted the doors, so they close like a champ. But the reason for the video is, there's Raisin the cat, the old engines. So let's just open this, pop the bonnet, pop the hood, as they say. Okay, 390 FE, the motor that came in the truck. I got it running pretty much as soon as I bought the truck, and it seemed to run all right until I realised it had a collapsed lifter. So fixed that. That was my fault. I didn't check, and I should have gone through the engine a little bit more before I turned it over. It would actually, the truck had been sitting for quite some time, and it had a bit of it got cleaned with a lot of high pressure water when they come into Australia. That's what happens. The customs basically just blast these things to no end. So there's a lot of water everywhere. But anyway, that's again for another video. The issue I've had, or the issue I'm having, although it hasn't actually been an issue for a couple of weeks, touch wood, is that, there's actually a couple of issues, but I would get it running and it would idle and start, and then within about 15 seconds, half a minute, it would just conk out. It was like someone had grabbed the fuel line and just pinched the fuel line essentially. So I'm like, oh, that's really odd. So I'm sort of thinking, well, I'll check the fuel. So I went through the fuel system, lines, filter, put a new fuel pump in it, and it was still doing it. So I'm thinking maybe it's the Edelbrock. So I had an old Holly sitting there and an old Holly 600, put a kit through that, back the Holly on it. And it ran right for a little while, and then it would suddenly do the same thing, just stall, you know, after half a minute of idling. And I'm like, oh man. So I'm like, spark, okay, cool. Now keep in mind, when I first got this engine, or actually before I even got the truck, I'd ordered new, you know, plugs, leads, cap, rotor, condenser, points, just, you know, knowing that this engine hadn't had anything new thrown at it for quite some time. So I whacked all that on, and so that already had, so the engine already had all those new parts on it when I had, you know, this issue going on. Maybe that was a bad thing because I wasn't sort of eliminating anything one by one. But what I did do after I replaced the carby to the Holly, and it still had the issue, I checked the coil, and I realised that the coil is actually getting, it was getting about 11.5 volts to the coil. So I'm like, that's a little bit too much. Points have been compromised, right? So why is it getting 11.5 volts to the coil? I actually don't know, and that's the issue. So I'm trying to work through that at the moment. I've gone through, so, you know, these old trucks and a lot of old, you know, Ford passenger vehicles had what's called a ballast wire. So that runs basically from the switch, ignition switch, to the positive on the coil. Runs underneath the dash. It's about 49 inches long. So, and it's a particular length, and it's a particular gauge wire that by the time current gets to the end, you know, it's reduced, so the coil's not getting a full 12 volts. On startup, there is actually another wire that runs to the relay that then you know, gives you 12 volts on crank. It starts, and then you let go of the key, and it sort of goes back into that run position. That's when that ballast wire kicks in, and you get the I believe it's around about 8 volts that you should be getting to the coil. Now I am getting, yeah, like I said, I'm getting about 11.5, so it's a little bit too much, and I believe I am compromising the points a little bit. I don't know why it's doing that. I've gone through the ballast wire, everything looks original underneath the dash. I can't really fault anything. I have checked the coil. The coil's good on the primaries, good on the secondaries with the multimeter, so I don't believe it's that. But you know what, it's running actually okay at the moment, so I'm just going to leave it, to be honest, until, you know, I guess really until the points, if that is the issue. Well, I mean, it's definitely an issue, right? I mean, I shouldn't be getting 11.5 at the coil, but let's just see what happens really until, you know, I'm just going to wait until something breaks. I have had a few issues, you know, with tuning this thing, so I really don't know, you know, where I'm at with it in terms of, I haven't really baselined it yet. Like, I still don't know whether this carby is okay for it. Well, I should say not for the 390, but just in general, because when I start it in the mornings, when it's a little bit cold, first start of the day, it backfires through the carby. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to try to eliminate that. I'm going to check the air fuel mixture screws at the front here. I'm also going to, it's actually on its high, it's actually on the middle setting on the accelerator pump. So if you put it up to the top setting there, that means that, or the top hole I should say, that means that this pump will then engage sooner, which means it'll, when you hit the accelerator, the pump will engage sooner, which means you'll get more fuel. So it'll make it a little bit more richer, which is what I think I need. When it's backfiring through the carby in the mornings, or when it's cold, I should say, I'm thinking it's because it's not getting enough fuel. And I'm not using the choke, which I probably should, but I just want to, you know, and it actually doesn't backfire once it warms up. So I'll give it a little bit more fuel. I'll see if that makes a difference. I will connect the choke, and I'll also adjust the idle mixture screws, and we'll see. And I'll do this all individually just to see if it fixes it. It's going to be a little bit tough because, you know, obviously by the time I start it a few times, it'll then start to get warmer, and it probably won't backfire because it runs like a dream right now and doesn't backfire once it's warm. Anyway, let's get into that, and I'll be back with you soon. Alrighty, so I've actually adjusted the mixture idle screws here and here. So what I did is, I believe they work the same as a Holly. You turn them all the way in, and then generally 3 half turns out. is what the recommended starting baseline is. This ended up being about 5. It seems to be in a pretty happy place. I've actually moved the accelerator pump bracket or bar to the top hole. There's a top, middle and bottom screw. More fuel, making the carby or the engine richer. You put it on the top, so it gets more fuel into the accelerator pump at a quicker rate, and then you've got, well, I guess it's more responsive as well. Middle and then bottom. Put it at the top. It seems to not backfire. When I smash the throttle, I do actually get a bit of backfire. I'm still yet to get that, working. Or get that sorted, but in general, I'm not going to be smashing the throttle. And when I say that, I mean just like full open throttle straight away. So it's not something that I'm going to be doing on this truck. But at the moment, I'm pretty happy with where it's sitting at currently. So look, at the moment, it is actually running. Oh, the other thing I did too was just check the timing. The timing was a little bit advanced, and it was running a little bit hot yesterday when I was just working in the paddock here. So I'm thinking it was potentially a little bit too advanced, although in saying that, this radiator, I'm not sure how good it is. I mean, I have done some work, or a lot of work around the farm here on hot days with this thing running, carting wood and trees and things like that, and it actually has never overheated. So despite it looking pretty ordinary, this radiator, it's running semi-efficiently. So I'm thinking it was a bit of timing, maybe a little bit too advanced, which I've just retarded it a couple of degrees. But it seems to be, actually I don't even need to give it any gas. Oh, there you go, straight away. Oh, by the way, I got the brake emergency switch working as well, so you can see, which I'm pretty stoked about actually. Most of them don't work. So when you turn the key on, it lights up and then it turns off. Then what most people think is that light is for the emergency brake, and it's actually not. It's actually for to let you know if the brakes are compromised. So there's a little junction box down below the behind the firewall, on the other side of the firewall, engine side, little junction box where all the brake lines feed into this junction box, and inside that junction box is actually a switch which operates this light. Now, if that light comes on, well, the light will come on when you start the car or start the truck initially, just like that, and then it should turn off as it does now. Now, if it doesn't turn off, that means that I believe it works in that if the light stays on, it means that switch is not turned off, which means there's not enough pressure in the lines, meaning that there's potentially something wrong with your brakes. Seems to be running like a top at the moment. Like I said, I'm not going to replace. Well, actually, the other thing that I was going to do, going back to the 11.5 volts running into that coil. And it's not hot, it's warm, but maybe that could be from the engine. I was going to just try and maybe get a ballast, maybe a 0.8 ohms ballast resistor, and put it at the end of, just run it at the end of the lead or the wire that comes out of the firewall, which is that lead there, and see if that's going to drop the volts to the coil. Still doesn't answer the question as to why it's still getting that many volts. If anyone knows, please let me know. If you've had an issue similar, or if you've rectified it, or if you know what it may be, please let me know. I'm keen to get to the bottom of it. But like I said, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run it until it stops. Essentially, I've got other things to continue on with, so I'll do that. And yeah, happy days. Okay, let's see how this thing runs after a little bit of tinkering and tuning. Starts perfect. I mean, she is a little bit warm now, because I have started it a few times. Idling. I've got an alternator bearing that needs replacing, so you can hear that, unfortunately. I'm not sure if you can in the video, but beautiful. So far, so good. Pretty happy with that. I'll try it again tomorrow when it's cold on startup, just to see if it does backfire on startup when it's cold, but it's certainly not backfiring now, which is great. One thing I will do soon actually is a video on this truck essentially, and a walk around, like a proper walk around. I think my first YouTube video was around, I guess just a quick walk around of both of my trucks, the 74 in the background there, this thing, and my 55 Chev. So I am actually going to do, I actually have already started on a walk around for the 74. I haven't got that finished yet, but I will do a walk around on this and just go through everything that I've done on this truck. I've done a lot of work on it actually, a lot of small little things. So I'll do that. I'll do the 55. I'll definitely do the 55 because I know a lot of you guys want to see a walk around on that and hear the story on it and how I got it, which is a really cool story. But I will definitely do a walk around on this and the 74 in I guess weeks to come. So yeah, stay tuned.